playing Tampa tonight.
Yeah. Big rivalry all of a sudden, but with the boss, eh?
Well, honestly, dude, Kucherov, I'm 2-0 in my fantasy starting off, and Kucherov basically won me the last 2 weeks. He has 100 fantasy points already, 50, because he had a hat trick that 1 week, and then last week, he had like a bunch of assists. So looking good. They're probably gonna. I just have a feeling they're gonna kick shit at Toronto. Whatever.
Dude, you don't know because it could go either way. Because Tampa always finds a way to lose to Toronto too. So
Toronto do have their number since they put him out that year. I think they basically beat him every game they've played since. So, well,
it's going to be a good game. I'm excited for it anyway.
I'm excited because it feels like the Leafs barely plays, and so I suppose it probably feels the same with Tampa, where it's flooded down there. But
yeah, true.
Going off of that note, people are probably wondering why we're dressed like this, but it's well, if you're watching on video, in the audio form, me and Jordan are dressed up, and it's because it's Halloween.
Spooky season, baby.
Yeah, spooky season. So you're going to be when you see this is going to be Sunday, a couple days before Halloween. We wanted to release it a bit before Halloween so everyone could...
Extravaganza.
Yeah, Halloween curated episode. Mostly Halloween. I see Halloween as a time that I could watch horror movies because I work from home. I'm a freelancer, or I work whenever I got to work at a theater or whatever. But I find Halloween's a time that I could watch I don't usually watch scary movies in the day when it's not Halloween season, but Halloween season, like I watched probably in the last 3 days like 6 scary movies. I think maybe more. So it's been a bit of a binge, but really enjoying it. So thanks if you're listening. Thanks for listening to the last 2 episodes. Again, great reception on them, and we couldn't be any happier. But yeah, I think we're gonna hop right in with one of the Newfoundland scary stories. So this one again is from Dale Jarvis's book Haunt the Shores that he's let us so graciously read from.
God love,
yeah. And this one is a little short one that I wanted to start off the show with: haunted pubs. So this is just in the downtown area, St. John's. The Duke of Duckworth is one of St. John's many fine pubs. And let me just get into this before we get into it. What a feed of fish and chips you get there. Have you ever been there, Jordan?
No.
Oh my God, man. If you like just like fish and chips, hot turkey sandwiches, club sandwiches, that kind of stuff, buddy, I'm telling you, best fish and chips I've ever had in my life. And I bet you at a restaurant, and I bet you most people can attest to that. And as fine of a place as any to wet your whistle, and yes, I could also agree with that. It's a great place to grab a beer. It's like in the alleyways downtown, like on Duckworth Street, Duckworth slash like Water Street. It's one of those. You can also enjoy one of Newfoundland's locally produced brews. The Duke, however, is also famous for spirits of another kind, as the structure is said to be haunted by a mysterious form that appears in the window above the entranceway, and which has been known to wave a ghostly hand at pedestrians navigating McMurdo's Lane. That's the name of the lane. That's like McMurdo's Lane. Oh, that's terrifying, like waving at you. Like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. And like it's a ghostly hand, so you could probably see the transparency. The ghost also features the only known local paintings of the Duke's ghost. Located to the right of the bar inside, for those of you with keen eyes who visit the Duke, however, will note a slight error in the painting, as the artist has shown the spirit materializing in the window of the building across McMurdo's Lane. Christian's Pub on George Street, another great pub, show Christian's. That's where greatest places you can get a screech in Newfoundland, which is also a great place to grab a beer, is another one of the town's haunted pubs. It is the oldest pub on George Street, and indeed is located in one of the street's oldest buildings. The Christian's Ghost is a relatively well-known attraction at the pub, and has even been immortalized on the pub's website. The ghost is said to be female, and has been lovingly named Maggie by the proprietors. Maggie has been seen to materialize in physical form by several of the staff members, who claim to have seen the figure of a woman in a long white dress appear in one of the old church pews on the main floor. Indeed, The proprietors of the public house have hypothesized that the figure of the woman actually arrived at the pub with the pews themselves, which were taken from the old Congregationalist church on Queen's Road. What a devout Congregationalist churchgoer is doing on George Street long after her death is anyone's guess. In addition to taking up valuable seat space, Maggie has also been known to wreak havoc with equipment behind the bar and to stomp disapprovingly around the second story when there's no one actually on the second floor to see her doing so. The end. Dude, this dog has a fucking European Union passport. Like
What?
He's from France, right? So he has like a passport, like what I was a vaccination passport.
Holy fuck.
But it looks legit. He's also like blind, and he's a really good boy though. Like a just little shot of him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's been good. So yeah, that was the haunted pubs. I'm sure we're George Street. For anyone who don't know, George Street has the most bars per square kilometer or something like that in North America. It's in St. John's, and it's a pretty old street, and St. John's itself is the oldest city in North America. So I'm assuming there's probably more than one ghost hunt.
You know, you fucking knows there's stuff going on down there, by.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I used to work down there, like if I was ever working at the pub by myself, like I always felt there's some pubs like Bridie Malloy's in particular that I worked at, awesome place, really big and like old looking. And I just felt uneasy there sometimes, like by myself, just weird. I guess, yeah, like going off of that, have you ever experienced anything like super weird, Jordan?
So I got a couple, but they could easily be explained away by logic, but what's the fun in that? So Monty's is all the workers up there, all the women in the kitchen and stuff have said like it's haunt. They've heard stuff and stuff.
Maybe
so
you
like,
should explain Monty's.
Oh yeah, I probably should have because no one. Yeah, so Monty's is just an old spot up on Trans-Canada Highway where me and Julian actually worked at different times, and I guess it's just an old building and just haunted. I guess anyway.
But we worked there at the same time as well. Like we worked.
We did, and we met Alan Doyle there. Remember that?
Yeah, I did. I do.
Unreal. Anyway, so it's pretty simple stuff that happened. But anyway, one time I was downstairs. And I heard a woman walking in heels, and it was very fucking loud. And I thought it could be above me, but like, dude, it was like, it sounded like it was all around me, dude. It was wild.
I was scared in there too. Fucking basement.
Dude, the basement. And after hearing the women talk about like the children under the stairs and stuff, like children whispering they've heard and stuff, terrifying. And the other one was, I was out in the other room where Buddy had his cars and stuff too.
Yeah.
And I looked in, and I seen someone in white go into the cooler. And I went and checked, and there was no one there. And I went upstairs, and none of the ladies who was in the kitchen tonight was wearing white. So I can't really explain that. Other than that, I can't really think of anything fuck this happened to me scary wise.
Okay.
What about you?
Nothing. Like I've always been just scared.
Yeah.
So like growing up, when I was in like third grade for my birthday, I had like 15 people sleep at my house. Like just one of those massive birthday parties that you have, and like we watched the original It, and like one of my buddies cried, man, and dude. From that point on, the house I lived in, like in Long Cove, until I moved out of there in grade 10. That's when I moved away. Until I moved, I was scared to go basement by myself. Because like go down the basement, and it was like this wide open basement. Like, dude, I used to be able to go down there and shoot pucks. It was a huge basement, right? It was like kind of very much like Jordan Smith's basement.
Yeah.
There was like about a little crawl space when you could go around the corner when you come down, and like anything could get you. You know what I mean? You wouldn't know if it was there because you had to like come around to look in.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. And I was so scared of It. Like the clown. It was bad, dude. Like really bad. And I just was so horrified of that. I was just so scared of that corner. Also, growing up, where I lived in Long Cove, Like I lived really close to like Mark King, Robert and Tyler, like Newhook. Like Tyler Newhook just grew up. Robert and Tyler grew up probably like honestly a 5 minute walk from me. But
Good luck.
dude, how scared was I to walk home in the nighttime? Because we'd hang out at Roberts. We'd be in like grade 6 and we'd hang out there in the summer until like early in the morning. Like our moms didn't
Right.
care. They knew where we were. We're hanging out, whatever. We're just being kids. Dude, I'd had to get Bi's walk me home. I'd had to get mother to come get me. It's because our driveway was like dirt road, and it was like the last house at the end of the street, and it was pitch walking in the driveway at night. And dude, I used to be so scared, man. Like no doubt, it's haunted around there. It's terrifying. But
That
like,
reminds me, actually, dude.
yeah,
When I was a kid, well, I seen Jeepers Creepers, and I was terrified to walk anywhere because I was convinced that motherfucker was going to come out of nowhere in the sky and snatch me and take me away, dude.
oh well, and see that's the thing. Growing up and then watching horror movies, like
Yes.
I grew up with like my mom and my stepdad were obsessed with horror movies. So like I watched a lot. I was exposed to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And some of them I couldn't watch, or like what I would do is they would watch it on tape. Like they used to rent VHSs back. Remember back?
Yeah.
That was man back in the day. It was deadly. Rent a couple of VHSs. I'd wake up super early. I could like they'd be like, you can't watch this one. There wasn't many they didn't let me watch, but there's a couple I guess like just insane sex scenes. They're like, this kid doesn't need to see that. Um, I'd wake up early in the morning and go and put them on and watch them by
Ooh.
myself, right? So I'd like, and then mom owned a couple, so I'd like watch those, and I'd be scared to shit of myself. There is something that happened to my aunt and like a couple people at Norman Scove, like back in, I guess like in the 70s, 80s, and it revolves around the urban legend, the Hat Man. I don't know if you've ever heard about him.
No.
It's like a black figure that wears like a brimmed hat. For people watching the video version, I'll put up a really quick picture of what he's supposed to look like for you guys. So my aunt and her friends are just like playing like Norman Scove. They grew up. My mom and like her sisters and their brother grew up on the bottom of the hill, and like on top of the hill is like 4 or 5 graveyards. So like
4 or 5 graveyards.
So, like they're up the road playing. My aunt was, and like they were just playing, and they turn around, they look at the top of the hill, and apparently they see this tall figure dressed in all black, wearing a hat, and he's just like standing on top of the hill looking down at them. That's the first one. And then the other one, it happened to, I'm kind of related to them. I was really good friends with her son growing up, but so they lost their dad at a really young age. So like this is like in the 70s. So they lost their dad at a really young age. My buddy's mom, and her mom was always sick, and she wasn't allowed. Like her mom had like lung issues and stuff, and like asthma and allergies, and she couldn't have any pets. And this is back in the day, like no one locked their doors. So this is in the days of that. She had like a dog or a cat that she was keeping a secret from her mom, and she was petting it, and she could feel something behind her, and she turned around, and in the basement with her was the Hat Man. Well, like that's not what they call him. They call him like the Man in Black or something that a couple of people have seen, but he's definitely the Hat Man. The Hat Man is a ghost-like entity that is seen as a shadow-like person, wearing a trench coat, a hat, usually a fedora. He acts like a ghost and is almost always seen just standing up. He can simply fade away. Unlike a ghost who might have visible facial features, the Hat Man is a shadow in the dark in its entirety, with no identifying features. It can feed off you. It's just horrifying, man. Like, yeah. So, like, dude, growing up, that's all I could think about was seeing that guy. That motherfucker in it, like, definitely haunted my dreams growing up. So,
yeah, well, I don't even know how my horror, because, like, I grew up in a Christian household, and mother and father wouldn't hear telling me fucking watching scary movies. But like, I think it was. I used to watch scary movies at Craig's house. Craig, Thorne, and Tyler. They had like. I remember watching all the Friday the 13th movies there, Nightmare on Elm Street, and all that shit. And I was terrified of Freddy and Jason when I was a kid, man.
maybe before we go any farther, we should explain what we are to people. Just in case you were like, what are they dressed up as? I'll let you go first. I'm just simply I'm a pond hockey player. I have my toque, my sunglasses, but they're an alcohol brand name. I have my jersey, but it's like a car dealership in Guelph, so it's kind
That
of
is
so it's
that was
like
like a beer league jersey,
that's
dude.
what I mean. It's super rec hockey, and I got my Hockey Canada gloves that are super warm. So yeah, I'm a pond hockey player.
I'm just a fucking. I'm a disco fucking
maniac. Disco. Yeah. That's okay. So
disco inferno.
Yeah. So I think you brought up Freddy versus Jason. Yeah, that one. When he like they're in the this is in the bed, but he's in the bed. And he closes the bed on him. That is. I seen that maybe like 20 years ago, man. Probably even longer. And that one. Oh yeah. That scene stuck with me. Freddy versus Jason. And going off how we watched a lot of scary movies recently, and over our friendship as well as Jordan. I think we should talk about the one we watched most recently together, which also has been the scariest one we've watched together in a while.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
yeah. Do you want to go on a bit about it?
Well, I didn't hear about this movie till literally yesterday. Julie mentioned it. It's called The First Omen, which is apparently the prequel to the whole Omen shit. It was unreal.
Yeah, it's definitely like scary movies are so hard to be like, well, it's the scariest movie I've ever seen and stuff, because there's always parts in it where you're like, okay, that's a bit far-fetched and whatever.
Right.
But I gotta say, this movie doesn't do that. It actually did a really good job of keeping me interested.
Yes.
It doesn't give away too quickly what's happening.
Right. Dude, we were asking so many questions so early on. We were like...
Exactly. And you could kind of tell what's happening probably halfway through. You can kind of get it. But they are trying to lead you down a path, and I do give them full credit. Directing-wise, the movie was shot beautifully. Like it does all these shots of like looking over Rome. But then, like, as the movie gets progressively more fucked up, the camera shakes over Rome and it goes all crazy. And I think that's just little things that I'm like, that's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
Acting, I thought all the actors were great. There's a lot of like, you got
star-studded cast, dude.
Yeah, you got your. I think it's one of those movies that a lot of people in it are actually British, but they're playing like Americans or other.
Yeah. Right.
And Nell Tiger Free, who plays the lead character, Margaret, who is a nun who hasn't taken her veil yet. I thought she was great. I think, however, I do think one of the best actors in it is Father. Is it Bannon? Brennan. Father Brennan.
Yeah, played by Ralph Ineson. He's in The Witch, and I also seen him in that. Did you see the series? What the fuck's it called?
Is he the father in The Witch?
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude.
Yeah, dude.
And I also seen him in the hell else is he in? Oh, Chernobyl, that miniseries. I don't know if you've seen that on HBO, but yeah, he's in that too.
I see that. Yeah, that's an incredible show. Yep. And he's a returning character from the Omen series that everyone knows. And so yeah, basically it's Damien's origin story. They're trying to birth the Antichrist, and we don't want to give away too much on this one because we really think you should watch it. You can watch it on Disney Plus. I'm sure there's other way. I'm sure you could buy it on Amazon or whatever you can usually do with movies. I just couldn't recommend that one anymore.
Another thing I like about a movie too is like there's no wasted scenes. I feel like everything is building to something, which is great. Yeah,
it is. I agree. Which I guess another movie that really does that well. It's going off of fucking really scary movies. I think one that Jordan, we watched this like early in our friendship. And spoiler alerts, we won't spoil it too much, and also me and Jordan spoiling doesn't do the movie justice anyways. You should watch it. It's Sinister, which
oh my god, my favorite horror movie of all time, dude.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones too. It's easily one of the most uneasy watches I've ever had.
Oh yeah.
Where I feel super uncomfortable watching it.
Well, dude, the opening scene is a family getting hanged, dude. Great cold open, by the way.
It's brutal. So it follows lead characters Ethan Hawke, who's a true crime writer. Him and his family move into this house. Him, his wife, and two sons.
A daughter and a son.
Daughter and a son. Yes. So as Jordan said, the first thing you see is a family hanging themselves. What the family doesn't know is that this is a house that happened in, and Ethan Hawke has wanted to move here because he wants to be inspired for his new book.
Yeah. And he doesn't tell his wife, dude.
Yeah, I know. And he's a true crime writer. He's doing all this investigating, and then he finds these videos in the attic. Mm-hmm. The videos have like the symbol on it. It's like Super 8 film. So the first one, and they're all called like, you think they're family movies.
Oh yeah, just happy-go-lucky. Oh, family barbecue.
Yeah, it's Pool Party 66 is the first one, where a whole family drowns in a pool.
Perfect.
And then he keeps progressively watching these videos of entire families being like dying. Like what it is, it's the family movie, and then it like cuts to everyone being dead.
Right.
It's quite, because that's what it is. It's the actual thing happening, and then it transitions to the brutal killing.
Yep.
I think he thinks at first he struck gold because he's like, holy, like this is crazy. This is going to be the biggest mystery ever. And then he starts doing his own investigating, finds out that it's like this pagan god.
Yep. And he's just in over his head, dude. He's pretty much fucked, and he doesn't realize it yet.
Yeah, he doesn't realize it yet. And it's basically the boogeyman, essentially, this pagan god that he is.
The only thing I don't really like is how they call him Mr. Boogie, which is kind of fucking lame, but...
It's the whole kid thing, though.
Yeah. And how terrifying the guy looks makes up for his name. He is actually probably one of the scariest looking horror movie villain, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I've ever seen. It's
definitely one of the scariest movies ever. It has a sequel, which I wouldn't recommend anyone watch because it's...
I haven't watched it, and I never fucking will.
So, exactly. I've watched it, but it was horrible.
There you go.
Yeah, so definitely please check out Sinister. So, going off Sinister, I guess, Jordan, the next movie that me and you seen together that both scared the shit out of us, and I think it's the scariest movie ever, is The Conjuring. The first Conjuring. We'll chat a bit about the whole series because we've seen them all. I've seen the first one probably like 15 times.
Well, dude, we watched the first one in the movie theater in the middle of the day, and it still scared the fuck out of us.
Yeah, and I would say if you're a horror movie fan, you've seen it. If you haven't, you should see it. But like this one actually, I gotta give it like credit, just like the first Omen, and just like Sinister. Opening scene, we get Annabelle, which now has her own series of movies and stuff. Like, it's a horrifying story about this doll. Essentially, they take the doll is like a haunted doll and is trying to kill these. Can you imagine? Oh my God. It asks what is it? It asks if the ghost can take over the doll or something.
Dude, what gets me is when they try to throw it away and it just keeps coming back.
And it knocks on the door. It leaves a fucking note like, I'm here or something. It's just so terrifying. Oh, yeah. So what happens is that they're like, you can't be saved, and they take the doll. It's following the story of like the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine, who are real people, who are demonologists, who are definitely not scam artists.
Definitely not.
It's one of those classic trope movies of we have these saviors essentially and the family in need who are being haunted by a lot of ghosts, but there's one in particular, Bathsheba is her name. She's based on a real person, but not as bad as the movie makes her out to be. And she apparently killed a kid, her baby or whatever, and hung herself. When being thrown around the room, and they come up and they see her for the first time on the dresser.
Yeah. I'll never forget that, dude.
No, but there's the thing about that movie is that, and like they come in and they're like, there's so many ghosts here, and then it just becomes one of those classic. When we talked about Deliverance, it kind of like Deliverance kind of remind me about it. It was roles reversed. It was a parent. They're trying to get to kill the kids, to kind of sacrifice the kids, but also on this land, there's been hundreds of people killed or whatever. Again, I thought it was great acting in this one. Patrick Watson's great.
Patrick Wilson. And Vera Farmiga, the goddess of the horror genre, yes.
And I thought the kids were great.
Dude, but that's the thing about these fucking movies, man. When you got kid actors, it could go either way. But like all the kids nailed it, dude.
And they were so scared; it was so believable. Like that's how scared I would be. I wouldn't know that I would be. Just
I can barely deal with my day-to-day life as it is, let alone if there's anything fucking like horrifying going on. So yeah.
Yeah, and then after the first one, there's the second Conjuring movie, which it's about the Enfield poltergeist, which is for anyone who doesn't know, it's a famous poltergeist story in Britain about it, like one of the worst haunted houses in Britain, they call it. And then this movie, which is totally dramatized from the real story. I didn't like the second one.
I'm struggling to kind of remember a bit about it, so I guess
it's scary, but like the whole nun thing, I don't think is good. There's no, and also like if you're looking at the real story about Ed and Lorraine and all them, there is no nun in that world. So it's like, did you have to do that? I guess it's another evil outside of the current evil that they have to fight against, but I don't buy it. Well,
but I think we can both agree the nun looks fucking terrifying.
Oh, and it's also a horrifying concept.
Oh, yeah.
Which you could argue has now birthed a lot of other... like the Nun series has birthed other Nun movies that are kind of like trying to play on the scariness of nuns.
Right.
Like, I never experienced this, but there's a lot of people who went to like Catholic schools and stuff when they grew up, and like the nuns were their teachers, and they were like super rough and super hard, like because they're and like what, but like that, so I think that kind of scares people already. Like
100%.
If you're gonna watch the first one, it's just well to watch the trilogy, but the third one, even though dramatized from the real story as well, like heavily. The third Conjuring, the Devil Made Me Do It, it follows the story of Ernie Johnson. So, which is like the real story is it's Ernie Johnson murdered his landlord after a exorcism of his brother-in-law, essentially. And he said he was possessed by the same demon and then can be possessed and depossessed. In the Conjuring movie, it's a bit of a newer one, so we won't spoil it too much for you. That's basically the beginning of the movie, and then the movie follows basically him trying to get off of the murder. And there's other things happening within the story, but it's essentially him trying to get away with the murder. But in this, there's a crazy witch who's controlling him. I like that one, but I'm still like, yeah, I just feel like it's a bit of a...
It doesn't... None of them have the charm or like the scare factor of the first one.
No, they definitely don't at all. So this movie is actually has a documentary on Netflix, The Real Story, and it's called The Devil on Trial, and it tells the real story, and it also tells a bit about the real Ed and Lorraine Warren, and essentially it got the 8-year-old David Latzel. He's in it, telling his side of it. The boy who was apparently possessed and whatnot. It has Ernie in it. It has a couple of the brothers who are like. And the first thing you learn, like it pulls you in by like, oh, he was possessed, and it really but then it takes a turn on like his brother is like, nah, this was all bullshit, and he kind of just tells about how the family was tricked by the Warrens, which we'll probably get into in a further episode about the Warrens and how problematic they are and the scams they did.
Yeah.
They also fell for it, like they also fell in love with the money as well. So this whole movie is just like playing on this trial and how they tried to say the devil made them do it. And I'm just going to say this right now. There's so many of these things that when I'm watching it, especially it's got a lot to do with the justice system in America. I'm like, he would be a white guy kind of almost getting away with this. No, it's true. Like I never see like person of color claims devil possessed them and almost gets away with murder. It's pretty.
No.
And I'm not. As a Canadian, I don't want to comment much more on the justice system in America than that. But it kind of feels like that. But then, like you even learn that from this kid, he had a lot of issues. He was probably mentally ill.
Well, dude, yeah, I got the whole vibe from that whole family. They're all mentally ill, so it was like, yeah, I couldn't take much. I watched it, and I couldn't take much what they were saying seriously, but you know,
exactly, yeah. No, it's definitely one of those. I guess if we're talking about lamer horror movies, we could also talk about. We recently watched Smile together, which,
dude, Smile's a weird one because I like it. Like, it's creepy and it's disturbing, and like Saucy Bacon killed it in her role. But like the ending, I just think it falls flat on its fucking face, dude, in my opinion.
But it basically ruins the movie.
Yeah.
In my honest opinion, the movie is ruined when
it's explained what's going on. Or whatever.
Yeah. And like we were talking about yesterday. Why does it have to be that? Like, why can't it be? We don't want to spoil this because it's a bit of a newer movie as well, and people should still see it and make their own judgment. But like, why is it this thing at the end? Like, why can't it just be a malevolent spirit we don't see?
That's what some horror movies, man. Like when they show the monster or the demon, or whenever they show what it's going on, it just takes you out of it.
Why can't it just be her mother the whole time? Like, even if it was just her mother, it's scary.
True. Yeah, her mother like haunting her from the fucking grave. That'd be terrifying, bro.
Yeah, and like I get the movie has the message in the movie is real. It's like all based around trauma and like what trauma can do to you and how having trauma can just set you up for being someone who causes trauma to people.
Yeah.
But I think that side of things, the psychological factor, the smiling people, super scary, but like it kind of just like it could have been scarier. I think it could have been.
I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10, maybe not even a 7. I don't think.
Yeah, I give it like a 6. I don't even know.
But the acting in it is great.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like it in my opinion, in comparison to like the first Omen, it doesn't like they don't tie each other's shoelaces, but
but it has its good and bad points. But yes. Smile 2 just came out. It's in theaters now, and I'll probably go watch that one these days and see what's that all about.
I'll probably see it too. Like, you know what I mean? Seeing the first one, just while to watch the second one, it progresses the story along a bit more. I have general curiosity of what this is and whatnot. Because even at the end, I don't think that's what it is. That's what it becomes in your mind. But like, what is it truthfully? A movie that I think the original is like a horror comedy and supposed to be a bit funny, but the remake was the opposite of that because we also recently watched Evil Dead Rise. So I want to talk about the first Evil Dead, the Evil Dead 2013 remake.
Dude, I love that movie so much.
Me too. It's another movie that we watched together in Jordan Smith's basement.
Good Laff.
And it's Fede Alvarez, who's now done a bunch of scary movies as well. Like, he's also done Don't Breathe, and he's also done the new Alien movie, which I think was pretty good.
Oh, you seen it? I don't know.
I've seen the new Alien movie. I think it was pretty good. Nice. So in the Evil Dead 2013, it basically follows the same plot.
Cabin in the Woods, Book of the Dead, Deadites. There you go.
Again, though, it opens with a terrifying opening scene. You basically hear an old woman saying like some kind of ritual in a different language. Then it like goes in the basement of the cabin. You see like this woman doing the incantations. You see a bunch of like hung up dead cats and stuff.
Fucked up stuff.
We see like these two like woodsmen, I would call them, like definitely people who live in the woods, and older man. Then you hear this girl talking, and it shows the girl who's possessed by the Book of the Dead.
Yep. Which
absolutely terrifying. And then it goes into the movie, which I gotta say, like it was released 11 or 12 years ago. It's been out for a while, but it's one that if you haven't seen, you should. It has definitely, I would trigger warning, like massive amounts of gore and like rape, because there is.
Yeah.
The movie is diabolical.
Yeah, and Jane Levy, the one who plays the main chick, fucking kills it in the movie, dude.
She does kill it in the movie, and the scenes where she's under, because they do the same thing in the original 70s one or 80s. She's under the floorboards and she's like talking to people.
She's just peeking up, dude.
It is so scary, and the kills in it are like super like brutal and but believable. Like they're not like these nuts.
And dude, what I love about it too is like they have a good reason not to leave, because she's freaking out about being possessed and stuff, but she's also going through like substance abuse, like detox. So she's losing her fucking mind. They're like, okay, bye, we're not believing your shit, we're not leaving. And then they're stuck there. And then I think it's great.
Well, I'm going to say it again when we talk about Evil Dead Rise. But I think the one important thing is if you find a book in the basement of a building or a cabin and it has pictures of people being ripped apart and murdered and raped and other things, and it has like a language you don't really understand,
so the book is literally made of human flesh, my guy.
Yeah, so leave it there.
Yeah,
leave it where,
not only leave it there, but the Buys reads from it.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Leave it where, like, leave it.
Yeah, just don't.
Go upstairs and be like, hey, everyone, we gotta go. I got another Airbnb. It's okay. We're going back to the city. And also, like, there's a store. There's always a store that keeps it there. That's the other thing that keeps it there as well. So then the other day, me and Jordan, I watched the movie by myself. It's always Jordan, but we watched it together. Evil Dead Rise, which I gotta say, it maybe has a bit more of the horror comedy feel.
Yeah, because like she is pretty funny to miss. Like when she gets possessed, the main chick, it is. Yeah, she's pretty fucking funny.
It's scary, but like it's definitely a bit more. I think it's a bit more on the funny side than the remake. If this one's newer, I would really recommend people watch it too. And you don't have to watch them in any order because they technically don't follow each other in any.
No, because like the Evil Dead is pretty simple. There's a Book of the Dead. It possesses people. They're called Deadites. They fuck people up. Yeah, good laugh.
But there's always the main possessed who are trying to possess others.
To spread it around, yeah. And
they do that by killing them, and I think it's like some kind of transfusion of blood as well, or like there's some kind of infection going on for sure. But what I really liked about this one, it's supposed to be like newer, and it's following like tropes that the hip kids are into these days. And instead of a book, it's all on record because the young guy can't read the book. So he plays the records, and an old priest, and then he ends up reading the book, and like the thing about these movies, no one is safe.
No, dude, these movies aren't afraid to brutalize children.
No, and they're not afraid to. You think like when you're watching, you're like, oh, these people are gonna live if you watch the movie, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah. But it doesn't always work out the way you think it does. And those movies do it really well. Where they're like like even the first one, the remake, there's the guy with the long hair who you keep thinking is dead, never quite dies until the end though.
Right.
But I do, going back, you mentioned Jane Levy, right?
Yep. Yep.
She's in Don't Breathe
Oh,
as
yeah, she
well,
is.
which she's a bit of a scream queen, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But another really scary movie.
It's just that movie is just terrible. I remember watching that movie for the first time, and I'm pretty sure I held my breath for the entire movie. It felt like,
Dude, it's one of the absolute realest movies ever.
exactly, like there's no supernatural bullshit. It's just a fucked guy who's blind who will fuck you up if he can sense you around him.
And like, I think it went blind in the army or whatever, and like you could
Yeah,
believe that he's a
yeah.
trained enough assassin from like whatever he did.
He's blind, and like his other senses are obviously heightened because of like his experience, and yeah,
But it gets progressively fucked. Like
yeah,
what he's doing and like just all this real, like it's one that I recommend people watch definitely. I haven't seen the second one. I heard it's pretty
yeah.
good too, but the first one is incredible. And like I said, it's something that could really happen, like if you're breaking into houses. But I wouldn't advise doing that because if you do break into a guy's house and try to steal everything he owns, and
Well, dude,
that happens to you, I'm gonna be like, well,
yeah, ask for it, bye.
well, you did. You didn't do any research on truly who this guy is. So going off of Don't Breathe and things that are a bit real, we want to do a little throwback on this episode of creepypastas, which I'm not sure if everyone remembers, or it's basically scary stories that people wrote, but they really did start in a world like this is middle internet years. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like 2000, just say like mid 2000s to like early 2010s. It's still going on, but that was like the height of creepypasta. And essentially, they started as stories that people believed. Like a lot of them, like, you know what I mean? Like Slender Man started from a creepypasta.
Yep.
A bunch of like, so like they have had pretty big impact on culture as well.
100%.
So I just want to read one of my favorite ones, which is The Whistler. And man, when I was growing up, there was a guy on YouTube. I bet he still makes videos. Mr. Creepypasta. And
Dude,
you know, on top of it, he reads the stories. He's
yes,
so good. So
iconic.
Good. And that's actually a great little idea. Like, I'm going to read these stories on YouTube and people will definitely listen. So, The Whistler. Last year, at the beginning of June, my grandparents asked if I could house sit for them while they were away. They are real active in their old age. Since they retired, they like to go on these month-long trips around North America in their RV. They also offered me money, and the promise of easy cash isn't something I often turn down, especially not when I'm unemployed. Plus, getting to spend a couple months in a nice two-story house down by the beach, everything was lining up to make for a chill, awesome summer. Hey, I'm in.
100%. Give her.
100%. Easy money, I'm in.
Yep.
Beach house? Hell yeah. A couple of days before I was set to take up residence in my grandfolks' house, my mom came into my room while I was packing. She touched me on the shoulder and said weakly, "You know you can always come home if you change your mind about staying there." "I know, Mom," I replied, a little puzzled. She hugged me around the waist and put her head to my chest. "I love you, kid," she murmured. I thought she was just being overly emotional about not seeing me much for the next few months. Old people are scary. I understand. I'm just kidding. I love old people, but I'm just joking. In retrospect, I thought of a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. By the time I got to my grandparents' house, they had already started on their trek around the country. There was a note on the dining room table telling me where to find grocery stores in their neighborhood. Some good local restaurants, cool things happening at the beach in the next few weeks. Pretty basic stuff. There was just one weird sentence at the very end. "If you see anything that looks amiss, it's probably that way for a reason."
Wait, not to interrupt you, but speaking of scary old people, but have you seen the movie The Visit?
Yes. And
great movie.
Yeah, like I find it kind of lame and like in a way, but it's also really scary. Like
it is a bit lame. Yeah,
but it's also really scary.
It's old people acting fucked and crazy at nighttime. Terrifying.
Yep. So if you see anything that looks amiss, it's probably that way for a reason. Which if I get that on a letter, I'm like, I'm not staying here. See, there's a time when easy money and beach house is like, I'm not being scared. Even if it's not something that's going to kill me, I'm not in.
No, dude.
No way. I would have never thought to connect those words to what they ended up pertaining to. But at the time of the strangers of the phrasing didn't even register with me at all. I was just upset that they forgot to leave their Wi-Fi password. Then I remembered that they still use DSL and that I had to plug my laptop into a cable to be able to connect to the internet. Dude,
That's horrifying as it is. Behind
yeah, I know. That's the scariest part. I had dial-up, man, until I was like 15. So get over it, dude. What is it about even the hippest grandparents being just behind the times enough to always leave at least one inconvenience when you go visit them? Dude, neither one of my grandparents had internet. I went to my grandmother's house this summer, like when we were getting ready for a funeral, and my uncle has internet there now, and it blew my mind that I could have internet at my nan's house. And there was never service at either one of my nan's house either. It's just like the perfect place to be older. Whatever.
Yeah.
The first night at their place was pretty chill. I watched some TV and strolled around the neighborhood. It's one of those part beach, part forest kinds of places. So like Grossmore. Like stone stapled Brighton Beach into the middle of Montana. It was past dark when I got back, and I figured I might go to bed early and try to do some exploring in the morning. After I locked up and I turned out all the lights on the first floor, I went to the stairs to do the same for the second floor when I noticed something peculiar. My grandparents had left the light on in the guest room. Easy enough mistake to make. I figured, who doesn't forget to turn the light out in a room every so often? I flipped it off and went to sleep in their bed across the hall. I was willing to push the idea of sleeping somewhere that had hosted grandparents' sex out of my head in order to take advantage of their comfy queen size. That's gross. A digression, but an important one. My mom and I never slept over at our grandparents' house when I was young. Well, that's not entirely true. The rare nights that we would sleep over, we would sleep in their RV, me in the bed and her on the couch. I didn't think much of it at the time, since getting to sleep in a big car is something that any little boy would find perfectly agreeable. The novelty wore off as I got older, though, and when I turned 13, I asked my mom if we could just sleep in the guest room the next time we went to visit Grandma and Grandpa. Maybe, sure, I remembered her muttering. I hadn't visited my grandparents since. Sometimes they would come to see us for important events like birthdays and graduation and stuff like that. But I hadn't slept over on their grounds for nearly a decade before I took this house sitting job. So this person's like 23, I guess. Now, as I said, the first night was perfectly chill. You could even extend that statement to account for the first week. I took in the beauty of nature, vegged out watching YouTube clips on their mediocre DSL connection. That's horrible. Yeah. Even met a couple of girls down on the beach. The grand folks had a big collection of old Flash comics from the 50s and 60s, so I'd sometimes end the night by reading a stack of them, shutting the light out and going to bed. Again, a perfectly normal, unremarkable first week. Then I heard the whistling. I was up in my grandparents' bedroom, cruising the internet around 2:30 in the morning. I think I was reading a Cracked article. Man, Cracked that's so like relevant to creepypasta. If you have any time while you're listening to this, do a quick Google on like old Cracked articles. It's just a good laugh. Early, like just millennial internet. It's like an easier version of 4chan and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But an earlier form of Reddit. Yes, Cracked is very much earlier form of Reddit. I think I was reading a Cracked article about funny video game glitches, which is pretty funny, when I heard a very soft but very distinct high-pitched noise for about 3 seconds. I don't think I even turned my head when I heard it. Thinking it must have been some goofy night bird. But then an hour later, it started again. It was too tuneful, too specifically melodic to have come from a bird, and it must have lasted for at least a solid uninterrupted minute. I thought maybe an ad was playing on my laptop, but I checked the speakers and they were turned off. Right as I started to rise out of my chair, the whistling faded out, almost like an inappropriate laugh. I closed my computer, locked the door of the room, and went to bed, unnerved. The next couple of nights, I had gotten to sleep early, but 4 nights after I heard the whistling sound the first time, it happened again. I was lying in bed awake at 2:45, trying to get some sleep, when the same tune as before started looping. It was a little louder than last time, and it didn't stop. I knew I was imagining it. It was responding to the acoustics of the hallway, the same way I heard any voice do the same when I was younger. The sound wasn't only real, it was in the house, right on the other side of the wall. I was rigid in bed, too freaked out to even breathe, until the sun came up after a grueling 5 hours, I dare say. Where have I heard that sound before? It was the only thing I had in my head when I woke up from miserable sleep. I walked around the beach, whistling it to myself in frustration for a couple of hours before it finally hit me. The Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding. Something in my grandparents' grandparents' house had been repeating the whistle refrain from the dock of the bay all night long. I went back immediately and checked all the windows on the second story. They were locked tight. My grandparents had a security system, so I couldn't imagine anyone getting in very easily. But even if someone had broken in, they didn't take anything. And like, who would go to the trouble of bypassing a security system just to walk up to the second floor, stand in the one place, whistle on the dock of the bay for 4 hours, and then leave when the sun came up? Unless they didn't leave. I ran into the kitchen to grab a knife and then scrambled, searched every room and every closet, looked under every bed, checked every drawer, behind them and under the couch and behind the TV. Nothing to suggest anyone besides myself had been here for over the last couple of weeks. Nothing except the whistling. That night, I mustered my courage and decided to try something, an experiment. I stayed on the internet until around 3 a.m. Sure as shooting, I start to hear the whistling again. And just like that night, it was the same song and louder than it was the previous night. Now, almost to the volume of a full normal voice, after the refrain was repeated a couple of times, I matched the whistle. As soon as the first half of the riff ended, I whistled, as clear as I could imagine. The second half. After I matched the whistle, there was a silence for a moment. Then the whistling came back, but it was not Dock of the Bay, and it was not quiet. It started out at an even pitch, very low, lower than I thought it was possible to whistle. Then slowly the pitch rose over the last couple minutes, higher and higher and higher, until it turned into a piercing shriek. It was not even a tone now. It was stop and start, almost like someone was belting it out between short, sharp breaths, and it was ear-splitting high. Worse still, the noise got slightly louder and slightly quieter over the course of the night in rapid intervals, which led to me to believe that whatever was doing this was running up and down the hallway, passing in front of my room every few seconds, but I never heard footsteps, and I never saw a shadow under the door. That's so scary. Like, just, you hear someone running back and forth, whistling, and you're like, oh my God. This furious oscillating scream lasted for hours and hours. I sat in the far corner of the room, clutching my knife and covering my ears, keeping my eyes clamped shut, right as I was considered killing myself just so the noise would stop tormenting me. The sun began to ascend over the beach and the siren noise faded away. I slept for 3 useless nightmare-riddled hours. I knew my mom had lived in the house until she was old enough to leave home, and as far as I knew, my grandparents had lived here most of their lives. They had to have known about this nightmare, this haunting. How could they tolerate it? And if they knew they had some horrible paranormal entity residing on their grounds, why had my grandparents kept asking us to come back over and over again throughout the years? These were questions I asked myself all day. I tried to spend as much time on the beach as possible today, even tolerating the overpriced burgers at the snack shack, just so I wouldn't have to go back to the house to make something. In my mind, I reasoned that my mom and grandparents have had to done something to make that place livable. They had to have found a way to coexist with whatever lived there. Then I remember the light in the guest room. Everything made sense all of a sudden. I went back and turned the guest room light on, just for safety. I turned on every single light on top and bottom floor. My understanding of whatever this thing's logic was led me to think that it couldn't have come out if there were lights on. And since it lived in the guest room, it wouldn't be able to leave if the lights were on everywhere. Even though I'd have to adjust to sleeping with the lights on in my grandparents' room, I figured I found a way to make this thing's presence a non-issue. My grandparents could deduct the whopping electric bill out of my salary for all I give a damn. It happened later than it had before, at 4 a.m, at a boisterous volume. The next song it decided to whistle was the vocal melody of My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music. That fucker. Not only did it change its tune, it lulled me into a false sense of security. Thing that I had to beat after failed to show up at the same time it had in the past. But it whistled, and the lights burned on, and the sun rose, and I gave serious thought to drowning myself in the ocean. Maybe it was a mistake to have engaged with it, and that was why it wouldn't leave now, even with the lights on. Maybe when I addressed it, I invited it to my house proper. I never figured it out for certain because I was never able to make it stop. I didn't make the mistake of responding to it the second time, so it never changed times again, and it always started around 4 a.m, My Favorite Things. All morning, every morning, as preferred by a murderous, wrathful spirit. For a while, I came up with a consistent way to bypass it. I would just go to sleep early and pray to God that I wouldn't wake up between 3 and 4. And that actually worked for a little while. If I went to bed around 10 and slept through the night, I didn't hear the whistling, and no harm came to me. For the most part, this idea worked out for me for a couple of weeks. How long is he staying here?
I was going to say, what?
Months. Leave!
I just leave here now.
Oh my God. Then one morning around 9 a.m. in the middle of July, I woke up, my door was open, just a crack. I had shut and locked my door every single night for a month. I remember the sound of the door shutting and the lock clacking every night before I went to bed, including the night where the thing had opened my door. Did it stare at me while I slept? Did it sing me a lullaby? This was the last straw. I sat up and broke down crying. I had a run of strategies, and I had a run of battle plans, and I had a run of appeasements. Now the thing was toying with me, mocking me, showing it could get me to whenever it wanted. Asleep or awake, lights on or lights off. What do you want? I screamed in agonized terror. What can I do? Nothing responded, of course. It was the morning and the thing wasn't out and about yet. To my knowledge, groggily, miserably, I dragged myself out of bed when I got to the hall. I saw that the door to the guest room was cracked open as well. I had kept it closed, locked from the outside for the last month, like I had done for every other room. Why did it open that door too? Who could it? Oh, of course, I understood. I had a normal day. I ate my breakfast. I strolled through the woods. I took a great picture of the sunset over the ocean. And when I got back, I watched Adult Swim until 2 in the morning. Sweet. That's awesome. Man, fucking Robot Chicken. That's probably what he was watching.
100%.
And what's that band that had their show? What were they called? Dark Horse or something?
I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about Adult Swim, dude.
Oh, it was Adult Swim was sick. Then when I went up the stairs and got into my pajamas, I brushed my teeth and took a piss. I went into the guest room, got under the covers, and went to sleep. The whistling stopped completely. For the rest of the time, I was at my grandparents'. When my mom came back to pick me up at the end of August, I told her I had a great time. On the drive back home, she told me that Grandma and Grandpa had sent the money for the house sitting with a simple handwritten note that said thanks. She hadn't been able to get in contact with them over the phone for the last couple of weeks, but when she had last called, they were in Colorado and had a great time. A month later, my grandparents still hadn't come back. A month later, the whistling started again. I was in my bed to go to sleep and I heard it. Fly Me to the Moon, Frank Sinatra, just outside my door. I think my mom heard it too. I heard her crying, not this. I think I heard her sob. Not here, not again, please. I saw my mom at the dining room table the next morning, pale and haggard. She had not slept, looking at me with a mix of panic, exhaustion, and fear. It is an expression I imagine she wore many times when she was young. Kid, she whispered, what did you do? I looked at her, wanting to cry, heavy with guilt. Then I looked at her at the table. My money was on it next to an envelope, and next to the envelope was my grandparents' note, thanks. Oh no, kid? I suddenly understood why they had invited us to sleep over so many times all those years ago. Thanks. Why they always tried to make the guest room look so clean and nice for us. Why they always assured us it was the most comfortable bed in the house. Thanks. And
Holy
why I
shit.
was so very sure that they would never come home from their RV trip for as long as they lived. What did you do? So he took the ghost home with him?
That's what it seems like to me. Bro. Holy fuck. Is that it?
Yeah, so they were bad.
Fuck. That's nuts. I like that a lot, dude.
Yeah,
that was a good story.
And
Fuck.
like doing it at a certain time reminds me of The Conjuring, where the ghost like only comes out at like 3:03 because it's like
yes, dude.
That's when
the witching hour.
The Holy Trinity too, though.
I think is it 3:03 or 3:33, whatever it is.
Yeah,
I remember all the clocks stopped at the same time. Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
Yeah, so that creepypasta is just really uneasy.
That was a good, dude. I just think anything like that, where you're just somewhere looking after a house or something stuck for a bit, and something terrifying happens to you. Worst case scenario, I would.
Oh yeah,
I would lose my fucking mind in that situation.
Yeah, like that kind of reminds me of like what like all those really like those movies where you're home alone and it's just like The Strangers, which apparently is voted one of the worst horror movies of all time. But like the idea of the idea of a family of murderers coming to your house at mass on to murder you, that's horrifying. And it was a horrifying movie.
Yeah. Because like at one point I remember the most terrifying, because Ducky's just there in the kitchen and then the camera pans and then Buddy's just stood behind her in the kitchen and he just leaves.
Yeah.
And then at the end it's like, why are you doing this to us? And Ducky's like, because you were home. What? That's terrifying. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of terrifying, Jordan, I watched the first three Terrifiers. I watched All Hallows Eve, Terrifier, and Terrifier 2.
You watched Okay. Okay, good. I did not expect that. Good laugh.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Have you seen All Hallows Eve, like the anthology?
I've only seen Terrifier 1 and 2.
Okay, so All Hallows Eve, you should watch it. It's a good little prequel, like just to get the story. I thought, yeah, like it's definitely more horror comedy. It's scary because Art the Clown is probably one of the scarier bad guys in movies. And like the idea of like, what is he? Is he a person? Is he a demon? Is he a person who is like has supernatural powers? Like all that is really intriguing to me. But the kills are just wow.
Yeah, he's dead. What's the director's name? Damien Leone or something?
Yeah, like when they cut the girl in half.
Yeah.
Man, it's just brutal. Also the other scene when he knocks on the door and he's trick or treating and Mrs. looks in the bag and it's like a bag of weapons.
Yeah,
is just so scary. I would like recommend anyone who like loves horror, loves like just it's kind of funny. It has this like B movie aspect to it, especially the Terrifier 1, very B movie aspect. It's kind of shot lo-fi in a way.
Well, dude, the first one, the budget was $55,000.
That's what I mean. It's incredible.
For like what he does with such a low budget, Damien Leone is unbelievable.
So I would recommend people watching the series. It's really interesting. It has like some incredible kills in it. You're almost cheering for Art the Clown in a way because he's definitely the lead character in a way.
Well, dude, that's how I've always viewed slasher movies, dude. You root for the killer. You want it. I don't know if this makes me fucked up or not, but I hope from the more people, the more extras I see in these slashers, the more people I get to see killed, the happier I am.
Oh yeah, you know if he's gonna kill this person, like the person in the movie, like you could be like, oh yeah, this person's gonna die.
Oh, you're dead.
Kill him. So yeah, I really recommend people watching those, and I'm gonna see the third one as soon as I can. Another series that I recently watched over again, I just watched the first two, is Insidious, which are, again, I think really scary.
Well, yeah, I was the first two for sure are great.
Yeah, did you watch any of like The Lost Key or any of those?
I did, but I don't remember them, so they couldn't have been that good.
No,
I guess
the first two, like just this whole the demon, the red guy in the first one, along with Tiny Tim, terrifying.
Oh yeah,
The second one, that man who dresses up like the woman with the black bride dress on, that's one of the most terrifying things ever.
It is, yeah.
Like, so good.
Again, shout out to Patrick Wilson. He is a scream king, in my opinion, dude. He's a fucking legend in the horror genre.
He's also on Broadway all the time, too.
Is he?
Yeah.
Talented fucker. One movie we forgot to talk about was fucking Talk to Me, dude. Bro. That's one of the best horror movies I've seen in ages.
Yes. Which, again, like, definitely the theme is mental illness. But, yeah, like, that's a bit of a newer one. I would definitely like all these. Every movie we're talking about, even the ones we said we didn't like, we would recommend you watching them because you should form your own opinion, and there's still parts of them to enjoy. But Talk to Me is another one of those movies. Like, the beginning is fucked, and as the movie progresses, it just doesn't take any time off. Really, every scene is kind of uneasy. Like the idea of this hand, there's so much involved. The story is really deep and it's good.
Oh, 100%. But what I like about it is, like, we don't know much about the hand. It's very, like, ambiguous, and, like, hopefully there's a sequel and they could actually, like, just, like, explain the origins of the hand. You know what I mean?
What I also really liked about it was the ending. Whereas like some movies like Smile, which they almost have the same premise in a way. Like, there's very similar things. It's a curse.
Yeah.
It's after you, all this stuff. The ending's great.
Dude, I love endings that are fucking like just they're bleak and like there's no good outcome, and yeah.
No, it's like the old It movies and now the new ones. First movie's great, second one's pretty good, but then it's ruined by this really unbelievable ending. Which, like,
Right.
I get it. Like in horror movies, it's hard to end it because you're like, how do I end this? Do I just kill everyone?
Right.
I think honestly, the best option sometimes is killing everybody.
Also, Sinister did. Good Laff.
Yeah, without being too lame. Because like once you go to fight this entity, then it becomes unbelievable. Because I like a person can exorcise a demon or whatever, but a person can't beat a pagan god
No.
like Mr. Boogie.
Right.
Same with this hand, which is basically like just like it's not even a spoiler because it's pretty obvious. It's essentially bringing you to like purgatory.
Yeah.
That I think that's where you're going, or like kind of hell. It's real. It's just it does the same thing Insidious does too, where it's just really dark there, and that's just one of my biggest fears, dude. Another one we never talked about, Hereditary.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Which also follows the story of trauma and mental illness too, but told in the most terrifying way.
Dude, there's just so much fucking sadness and like, yeah. The thing about Hereditary is like the acting. Like Toni Collette, she should have won a fucking award for how good her acting was in that movie. The missus who played the mom.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And that's A24, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yes. A24. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So A24. So they're A24, which has also done Midsummer. It's also done X, Pearl, all those movies. That's all A24. And they're always just like have a supernatural aspect to them, but they're also like really, really scary. And like Hereditary, not at one time do I get a jump scare. But it makes me feel so uneasy the entire time. And that same thing with Midsummer did. It made me just feel like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. Like,
well, is Ari Aster the director? He's so fucking good.
Yeah, and they film in Montreal a nice bit. There's like a lot of filming that happens in Montreal.
What did you think of the ending of Hereditary? Do you remember it?
Incredible.
Yeah. I wasn't really sold on it, but like when the story's all tied together, I think it's a pretty solid ending.
But it's also not who you think it's going to be.
Right.
It's like not, and the person who they're worshiping is not the person you think it would be. It's kind of fucked up.
So I guess, Julian, to conclude this Halloween extravaganza, we could hit us with another Newfie story to finish off.
I do. I got one more there again from Dale Jarvis's book. Thanks, Dale. Again, absolute beauty. So this one is The Missing Body. It's Fogo Island, which I've heard is a beautiful spot. But I just went there and said it's deadly. Business left unfinished may cause a ghost to appear. Sometimes a ghost will appear to reveal the location of a will or money, or to bid farewell to someone they had not been able to speak with before their death. In a ghost story from Fogo, first recorded in 1978, a ghost appeared to pinpoint the location of his own missing corpse. The story tells of a young man from Fogo, about 25 years old at the time of his tragic death. Harry was a personable fellow and was well liked by everyone who lived in the settlement. Therefore, it was a great tragedy for the community that he drowned in the cove not far from his home, leaving behind him a grieving young wife and family and friends shocked by their loss. Another part of the tragedy was the fact that Harry's body could not be found following the drowning. Such was the feeling of community solidarity that every man in the harbor turned out to help search for Harry's body. I actually had a great uncle that was like tour hunting and drowned. And there's like tons of stories that like he was accidentally shot and the person who did it didn't say anything because it was like a really foggy morning. Yeah, so bit of a
What?
yeah, totally. It was widely
Nuts.
guessed that the body was located somewhere in the shallow cove. The men set to work to find the location of the body so that they could then drag it up to give it a proper Christian burial. The crew tried for a week to find the missing corpse, but try as they might, they could not find it. Some people in the search party expressed their doubt that the body would ever be found at all. They believed that the natural ebb and flow of the tide had taken the corpse of poor Harry out to sea. As days went by, their fears grew deeper. After 8 days, hopes of finding the body of the drowned man dwindled. After the 8th day of searching, the sorrowful search party returned ashore. Another long, fruitless day of dragging was left behind them, with no body brought back for burial. One of the younger men in the party tied up his punt and started for home. The young man had been a close friend of the missing man and was tormented by the loss of it as it had been his brother. As he neared his house, he was greeted by a strange apparition. Standing by the side of the road looking very real was the figure of Harry. He looked almost the same as he had in life, except for the fact he was ghostly pale and that the long strands of seaweed were twisted into his hair and hanging from his clothes. The ghost of Harry then opened his mouth and spoke to the young man. The ghost told his friend not to be afraid and announced that he had appeared to reveal the exact location of the corpse. The spirit informed the amazed man that his body could be found lying in less than 6 feet of water, wedged under a rock near a particular stage head. Having delivered the coordinates of his corpse, the ghost then evaporated into the evening air. The next morning, the young man told the rest of the search party of his eerie experience. They made for the stage head. After a few minutes of jigging the rock, the body was revealed and brought to the surface. Harry was brought to shore and was given a decent burial. This apparently appeased the spirit of the man. From that point on, he rested quietly in the graveyard, and for the good people of Fogo, never saw his phantom again.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Solid. Fogo. Jordan Smith was out there recently for like a week because his brother's missus lives out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there apparently. So I'd like to go there sometime and give it a look. Yeah, so I suppose that's it.
Guys, yeah, thanks for joining us in this Halloween extravaganza.
And like always, give us a like, a follow, subscription, 5 stars.
And tell your friends.
Yes,
spread the good word.
Spread the good word if you like it. Yeah. Oh, and also for our next episode, we're gonna do a new little thing, a little question. If you got any questions for me or Jordan, you can send it to. We'll have it at the description at the bottom, but you can send it to the Good Laff Podcast at gmail.com if you have any questions, or you can just shoot us a question on social media, like personally or whatever. It doesn't matter to us. And also, the next episode, the topic is going to be a huge surprise. But for any wrestling lovers, you're going to have it. Actually, for anyone who loves the dramatic, you're going to be interested. So, thanks again.
Good laugh.